Hey, how's it going?
Hello and welcome, everyone. I am your host, Carlo Cardilli, the Chief Operating Officer at AlphaRank. For those who are new to AlphaRank, our cloud-based solution optimizes funded accounts and loans from the online branch. Any marketing activity that you run, whether it's a Google ad, a targeted email, or a promo code, we can tell you exactly how many dollars were booked from that activity. Our system is trained on over 1 billion first-party data points from nearly 100 participating banks and credit unions. So visit us at alpharank.ai to learn more. Now, before I welcome a very special guest, Chris Hewitt, a couple of pointers on this webinar. Participants will be in listen-only mode until we get to the Q&A section. We do want your questions. We want it to be a live discussion. Send them in using the Zoom Q&A panel. Ideally, we'll unmute your line and let you ask the question live so we can have a real interaction. If not, we'll ask the question on your behalf. And then at the end of the session, we will send participants an email containing links to the recording and any other interesting information from the discussion. So without further ado, welcome, Chris. Now, many people in the industry, Chris, are very curious about alternative decisioning, but they haven't taken the plunge yet. So they want to hear from you whether the water is warm, and hopefully it's warm, but not scalding hot. So to introduce you to the audience, Chris Hewitt, you're the VP on Operations of Digital Strategy at Valley First, one of the fastest growing credit unions in California. Valley First just punched through the $1 billion asset tier, so it puts you in a whole new peer group. And in the 3 years that we've been working together, you've had blistering growth. So 17% compound annual growth. And last quarter, your share growth was 22% versus 8% for your new peer group, 17% loan growth versus 6% for your peer group, and also assets going pretty fast. The data speaks for itself. You're doing a lot of things right. So for context, to introduce yourself to the audience, tell us about the path that you took to Valley First, since you're, relatively speaking, still a little bit fresh to the credit union space, and your analytical background, and let's go from there.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Carlo, for asking me to be part of this conversation. Really appreciate it. So I spent probably the first 30 years of my career in market research and data analysis. So I was a founder of a boutique market research company that focused in certain vertical markets and financial institutions. Credit unions in particular was one of those markets that we focused in on. That career path sort of ran its course about 7 years ago. I switched careers and was lucky enough to find myself here at Valley First Credit Union. And I've been in my current capacity for, I guess I'll be entering my 4th year for that. So entering 7th year total with Valley First, and 4 of those in this current role. So really excited to be able to make a difference and for our communities out there.
Well, good. Talking about communities, tell us a little bit about the community that Valley First serves, Central Valley of California, for those who are not familiar with our Golden State. It's not the California that most people think of right off the bat.
Yeah, it's quite a unique territory, absolutely. So the Central Valley, our community charter runs from the Southern County, which is Kern County, which is the county right before you go over the grade to Southern California, and all the way north to Sacramento County, and we're mountain to mountain in there as well. So the Central Valley is really where there's 12 counties that we serve within that region, within that area. It's about 11 million-ish residents that live within there. The primary business is still really heavily dependent on ag up and down that valley. The demographics are starting to change a little bit with that. We comparative to the coastal regions, household incomes are a little bit lower. Education levels are a little bit lower, but we do have microcosms of different groups and demographics within that. But we, for the most part, I think it's safe to say, serve a little bit underserved market than what people might be a little bit more familiar with when they think of California, with the Los Angeles area and the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, certainly not Baywatch, right?
It's not, yeah.
Very good. So let's get a little bit into your digital stack, because I think over the last 3 years, it's fair to say that you've kind of assembled a state-of-the-art stack to serve all of the digital stuff. And now that you've got a good stack that you feel good about, you've turned on the jets on digital marketing. So if we just look at your publicly reported data on where your traffic is coming from, it's obvious that you got things working, and you got things working well. So starting earlier part this year, public reported data just really shows that so much more of your traffic is now coming from paid initiatives. So it's a stack well worth talking about. So tell us about your LOS, account opening, predictive analytics, also the orchestration layer, brand new fintech front end. You got so much going on. So
yeah. So I think that journey really started a few years ago. And I think it's probably helpful to what was it that we were trying to accomplish, right? We were looking for enhanced decision makings across the credit union, looking for speed and efficiency, personalization, customization, risk mitigation was a big component of that. We wanted an environment where we could continuously improve those decision engines, employing machine learning, AI technologies. That had to come with a cost savings to the credit union. So we're stewards of our members' funds. And then it had to be scalable and adaptable, right? And so with those goals in mind, we sort of set out and said, okay, well, we kind of have to have an inventory of how we're performing, right? And we actually started that digital stack and that roadmap with AlphaRank. So we found AlphaRank, and we thought, what a better place to start in terms of understanding, what does our funnel look like? How are consumers, members interacting with our website, and how easy or how painful are we making it for them to do business with us? That turned out to be pretty eye-opening, to say the least, for us. And we recognized that we had quite significant opportunities to improve our member and consumer experience with loan application, digital account opening, and just the use of our website. So those were not easy tasks to sort of take on. So we looked to compartmentalize what can we handle first, right? And then we got hit with this thing called the pandemic, right? And so that transformation really got accelerated, right? We were very cognizant of the environment and really focused a lot on digital. So we implemented Salesforce Marketing Cloud a month before the pandemic started. That was our second kind of enterprise application that brought us into the stack and a learning experience in terms of how members and prospects are interacting with us. That allowed us to communicate very quickly across the digital channels, email, social, and of course our website as well. We had AlphaRank that was there with us, tracking our performance. And then we ventured into digital media buy. And at that point, we leveraged both the AlphaRank Pixel UTM tags, integrated that with Salesforce, integrated Datorama, which is now, I think Salesforce keeps changing the names of their products, but I think that's called Intelligence now. But we are now able to have get insights from all of our data streams, email, social media, website, and really get an ROI across all of our different campaigns, all the way down to the ad set, so we can figure out what our ROI was. So that put us in a really powerful position to understand where we're getting good return on investment, how that targeting is working, what communities we're helping. And then we turned and looked at our application process, our account opening process. Again, we identified a pretty significant choke point there. Alpha Ranked helped us with that as well. We had lots of data showing we were sending many consumers to the top of the funnel. And, you know, I think at that time, I think we were somewhere around 30% pull through on applications. While that's pretty good, we felt we could do better. So we went back out to the fintech pond, so to speak, and we found the next entrance into our tech stack, which was with Clutch, which really, and it sits in between our LOS, which is Meridian Link, and all of the traffic that we're driving to our website. And that online application process, that journey experience that the members have, I call that the Amazonification of applications for auto loans. So that had a pretty significant immediate impact. You know, after having that turned on for 5 days, I remember getting a call from our VP of lending at
begging for mercy.
Turn it off. And I'm like, what do you mean turn it off? We're not turning it off. But what we had experienced was an immediate 5 times increase in the number of apps that were making it through the funnel, right? So because we had designed this tech stack that really allowed us to understand where our traffic was coming from, instead of turning it off, we just throttled down our spend and allocation. It was actually able to bring that spend down 75% during that time frame. So kept our app volume and production at the same level, but the spend was down significantly. So that put us in a really powerful position. So we quickly made some adjustments in our lending operations team. I want to say within about 30 to 40 days, we were able to turn that back on, and then that's where the hockey stick growth really started to improve. I think we went up as high as 80% pull through. But the real critical thing was we were the cross sell, right? Because of the Amazonification of that experience from the lending apps. We're now almost at 2. I would say our 6-month average is looking at about 1.8 apps per submission, right? So 1 product applications per submission. So that put us in a really strong place. And then we're now adding solutions. We introduced Interaction Studio, which is a Salesforce personalization studio. I call that our ear. So that sits and listens to traffic coming to our website. And so if that web visitor had clicked on one of our auto ads or real estate ads or credit card ads, we personalize that experience when they land at our website. And that has enhanced our website traffic, our website analytics. Still have room to improve there. That's going to be a little bit of a redesign on our website. That's one of our projects. And then, you know, one of our culture, we have a new, not really new, but our CEO is very passionate. Catherine Davis is very passionate about inclusivity and working within the communities and raising the communities, financial education, financial well-being. So we became a CDFI, and so looking from a tech stack position, how could we support that vision of hers? And so becoming more of an inclusive lender, we went back out to the fintech pond and we found Zest AI, which is an AI modeling, credit decisioning modeling tool that is a lot more robust than what we see with FICO. So FICO, your credit decisionings based on, let's say, 20 attributes. Our proof of concept model we did with Zest AI, and we're in flight with that, but we landed on just under 300 attributes that we're decisioning on, right? And so the power of that AI allows us to be much more inclusive and identify what we call invisibles, right? Our estimate is there's about 25 to 30% just credit invisibles here in the Central Valley, and they're using alternative, I'm going to say air quotes, banking solutions. They're not, though. They're horrible, right? They're payday, lenders, predatory. It's just terrible, right? So that's our next.
So if I can recap it for the audience,
yeah.
You got to work on the front end experience, so people are getting to the website faster with better context, so they can get into the shopping experience. You brought in with Clutch to Amazonify that shopping experience, so once the interest is developed, they can check out to see better products, the bigger baskets, like you said, close to 2 products per basket, and to complete the application. So now you're working on, in a nutshell, being able to say yes more often.
Yep.
And faster, so that they don't go elsewhere.
Yep. And I guess the last thing too is we are currently in flight on Salesforce CRM, Financial Services Cloud. And again, that supports all of those sort of goals that we had, and more so, right? The goal now is meet our members where they want to be met, right? So that's an omni-channel experience. We should be able to seamlessly follow them across whatever, cross channels, even within a transaction. So that's where we're at now. That's where we're positioning ourselves to support our communities today.
Yeah, and to your point about sort of inclusivity and the fact that these people are using, let's call them alternative, but I think, like you said, predatory is a better label for it. What we see, and there's a super interesting study that came out over the weekend where these folks looked at 2.3 million loans. But, as we, go down, the FICO score, and as people fall into that sort of, 650 and below territory, when they fall into, subprime, we see interest rates really just skyrocketing up. And that's sort of regardless of, their predicted delinquency. So another way of looking at this data from these folks, if you are in that golden territory, 650 and above, you're going to be the black line. So you're going to be paying what we consider to be reasonable interest rates. And if you're 650 and below, and even just a few points below 650, you're paying 7-8% more for that same loan with the same risk of default. And then it puts these individuals who have, less than stellar scores into just stress territory, because it's just so much more expensive to get the basics to, in the Central Valley where you are, Chris, having your own transportation to get to your, call it farm job. It's kind of non-negotiable. There's no other way to get there.
Yeah, no, it becomes a cycle that is very, very difficult for some of these individuals to lift themselves out of. So, yeah, and today it is very important for them to have access to that kind of capital and lending. So we're working very hard to be that financial institution of choice.
Yeah. So with this alternative model that goes beyond FICO. And you said, you're looking at 300 variables that give you a better sense of the likelihood of default, even if it's a thin file or no file, so thin they're invisible customer.
Yeah. So part of that proof of concept model was and that's starting with zero risk to our balance sheet. So same risk that we have today using FICO, these new attributes, zero risk to our balance sheet, right? So that's an important distinction
Mhm, mhm.
to
So,
call it.
so keeping the risk, the balance sheet risk the same, which I'm sure is what, you know, the CFO wants to hear. What is the change in approval rate? You know, does it go from like 15 to 50, or is it, you know, more or less dramatic?
It's actually quite dramatic. So with our data, so we went back several years and provided data into the model. We worked that model and the attributes, and so at that time, that moment in history, our instant approval rate was 17%. Running through that very same model with no risk, the new model, the Zest AI model, with no risk added to our balance sheet, that instant approval rate went to close to 55%.
Wow.
Yeah. So less referred apps to underwriting, being able to serve our market and community quicker, better, faster, with zero risk added to our balance sheet is those are significant and dramatic results. They've seen more. We've talked to other credit union and peers that have seen that instant approval go up as high as 80%. Now, those individuals have gone through a couple of iterations of adjusting their model, and that probably getting to that level, I would expect probably introduce more risk to the balance sheet, but it's not exponential risk, right? Or I wouldn't even be linear risk. It'd just be a moderate risk increase. So having these types of decisioning tools really allow you to be both inclusive, but also make the right decision for your organization, right?
Right. So
and
good for the
do it.
members because it's better access to cheaper credit, right? It's going to be better to get a loan from you than to get it from the, you know, drive now, pay now shop on Highway 99. Good for the credit union, frankly, and for the deposit members, because you're making more revenue from the same amount of applications. You're just more efficient. You know, people throw around the term win-win, but in this case, it seems accurate. Now, is there any downside to all this?
So the traps, I'll call them traps. Culture is a big thing, right? So that is one thing that again, our CEO and the senior team, we're really focusing in on our culture and our values. When you introduce and make changes like this, that doesn't come without pain, right? So having strong internal training, strong internal support systems to be able to do that is key. And then really you're changing the way you're doing business, right? So if you go from a 17 to a 55% instant approval, the referred files that are going to come to your underwriting team are going to look a whole lot different than they do today, right? So really that's both a mindset change and it's a risk change too, right? Because they have to look at these files differently, and then that's going to change kind of the composition of your back office, right? So you've got to be prepared for, where am I going to reallocate some of these resources? Do I need to have all of these underwriters, and do I move them to servicing, loan servicing, right? And then it comes with volume, right? So when I say that there isn't risk added to your balance sheet, when you double in size, right, there's going to be more. That doesn't mean that your ratios go out of whack. It just means that you're going to be doing more work, right?
Right.
So you don't forget, the other departments, right? You have to have your front line's got to be empowered and enough to engage, with the members. That includes your branch operations and your contact center. You've got to keep up to date with your digital tools, right? So you can, your online banking and mobile tools so that the members have access to that. So the mantra there is meet your members where they want to be met, right? So if they call
Exactly.
you, email you, walk through your door, you've got to be able to provide that same level of service that they expect that they're going to receive wherever they go. So I'm not aware of an AI tool yet that.
Not yet, but we're getting there. I read about Claude this morning. I'll send you the link. It's just mind blowing. It's Chat GPT on steroids, if you could imagine that. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to throw it open for questions from the audience. But I'll get us started. I've got a question that's burning on my mind, Chris. When you went about this journey to put in alternative decisioning, what was the single biggest obstacle you faced?
Oh, that's a great question, Carlo. I think as an industry, we probably need to rethink our relationships that we have with fintechs, right? If I were to go back, when I started here, I think that there was fintechs, right? There are competitors,
Scary.
and I think we have to rethink that mindset and look to them more as partners, right? Because we certainly cannot, I'll speak from our perspective. We certainly cannot compete with JP Morgan Chase, right? We're never going to have a building full of engineers, right, that are working on tech development and the tech stack. So. We are but forced to go into that fintech pond and grow that, and they do that too, right? I remember years ago attending a seminar with Wells Fargo, and their VP of digital started off with his website, and he said, "We've got 1,400 fintechs that we work with that are just on this website," right? So,
wow.
So that's I think that's probably the biggest challenge is getting through there, finding the right partners, and finding the right partners that work for you. And then I think the second biggest one is you cannot forget how that gets deployed within the organization. It's an ongoing challenge, right? And one certainly I'm going to say that we've stubbed our toe on a couple of times, right? but those are life lessons and those are growing experience. But you got to constantly remember what impact is this going to have on other departments, on our training department, right? We're introducing new things, right? That's probably my biggest fault is, I forgot about training, so.
Right. Like forgetting about documentation, which leads us right in. We have a question from William Nicholson. Brandon, can we unmute William's line and let him ask the question directly?
I actually don't know how to do that.
I think I got him. William, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome.
Fire away.
My question is, did you have to change your lending policies when you went to an AI decisioning base?
So great question, William. So our first model and even Zest AI suggested that we look at just mirroring our current underwriting criteria, and then we build from there. When we bring this in, and I call that, I have all these nomenclatures. So when we go into production with that, we're gonna move the Zest Brain in between our application experience, which is with Clutch, and our LOS, which is Meridian Link. And so the decisioning will be made with the Zest AI engine, and then book through with our LOS. We're going to run that for probably at least a quarter, and then we're going to evaluate and say, okay, how is this performing? What is this looking at? And then we can make some adjustments from there, whether we want to perhaps take on more risk or maybe tighten it up. But that really is the benefit to that type of stack, because we could theoretically go in and make a change minutes after there's a change perhaps by the Fed, right? And be a lot more determined in how we're decisioning making those credit decisions than just changing a rate, for example. I'm oversimplifying that, but we started out with a zero risk change to our underwriting criteria. It's just looking at more data points.
Got it. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. Brandon, we have time for a couple more before we let Chris get back to his busy day. What do we got?
Yeah, one more question. So we got Cindy from Carolina Central, who asks, how much better is the alternative decisioning you've put in over and above Meridian Link instant approval? How would I be able to quantify this?
I'm sorry, could you read the beginning part of that again, Josh?
Yeah, how much better is the alternative decisioning that you've put in over Meridian Link instant approval?
Oh, okay. So when we did our proof of concept modeling with Zest AI, that's historical data, right? So we have historical data on how those loans performed, and also on the ones that maybe we didn't approve, as an example, right? That went from 17 to 55%. So we went back in time and ran it through the model, the Zest AI model, and they approved, instant approved 55%. So that's a net increase of 23%, I guess. No, more than that. And then they went forward in time, right, to see how that file would have performed, and it would have performed without zero risk added to our balance sheet at that time. So hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Yeah. So 55 minus 17, that's a 38 percentage point improvement, but that's actually quadrupling. So that's enormous. I can see why Paul told you to cool the jets.
Oh, well, that was with Clutch. Yeah. So with Clutch was 5 times more, right? Applications getting through our application to hit submit. But yeah, so this is, once they hit submit, the instant approval process is going to be Zest AI. Yeah.
Wow. Just amazing. So we have a question from Ernie. Ernie, let me see if I can unmute you. Ernie.
Carlo.
How are you doing?
All right, how are you?
So yeah, you had a question for Chris about organizational.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of credit unions in my end of the country, and some of them are smaller. So a lot of the hurdles I go through is trying to convince their board to do things. So how did your discussions go with your board? Were they supportive? Did they ask for a lot of information?
Yeah, no, great question. So they were very supportive, but we went in with all of the proof of concept, right? So we walked them through for each of those tech stack, with the exception of AlphaRank, right? I tell every credit union I meet that if you're not using AlphaRank, you need to. That's the starting point, in my opinion, in terms of building your tech stack. It helps you focus in on where you're going, and I don't believe that would necessarily require board approval, but that could be different for each and every credit union. But the key is working with these fintech partners to help you build the ROI matrix and prove that case, right? So we did that with Salesforce Marketing Cloud when we implemented that. We certainly did that with Zest. We went through that exercise with Zest before we signed the contract. And so it was based off of our data. So it was very real. It was easy for our board to comprehend. And it's tough to argue with the data, right? Conceptually, it's kind of scary. You know, one of the big things I think with Zest AI, and maybe somebody out there has that question, is how do you get through compliance on that, right? And again, we leverage the partner Zest AI on that, and they've been through the ringer with the CFPB. I don't want to throw out the word certified, but if you go to Zest AI's website, they're one of all the ones that we looked at to help us improve our decisioning. That was a big thing, undoubtedly. And so boards are very concerned about that, and Zest AI does that as well. You know, your Salesforce is highly compliant. Financial Services Cloud is built for that. That's a great question. Each credit union is probably going to be a little bit different, but I would leverage, my advice would be work very closely at the outset with each of these fintechs and say, how are we going to prove the ROI on this? Like, what is the data that we're going to use to be able to prove that this is working as we designed it and as we intended it to?
Yeah, you anticipated the next question that was in line from Zach at Spectrum, which was how hard it was to get past compliance. So thank you for answering that proactively. Brandon, we have time for one more.
All right. It looks like Jim from Velocity One Credit Union is asking, can you ballpark the effort and budget required to put this in, like over or under $500,000 in 6 months?
It's going to be over 500,000. Yeah.
More than $1 million?
Well, it depends on how you do it, right? So each of these fintechs they have different pricing models. You know, that's why I would suggest starting with Alpha Rank first. I think it's the best value in the market, honestly. And it starts giving you that pool of data and insights in terms of, hey, we've got opportunity to improve here. And if we improve by X basis points or X percentage in these areas, this is what the return will be. Yeah, those tools are they're not inexpensive, to say the least. Salesforce is not an inexpensive tool, and Zest AI is also you know, not inexpensive. So again, build your return on investment model, work directly with those fintechs. Those are the ones I've chosen to work with. There are others, you know, that we've selected, but there are others. If they won't work with you on an ROI, that's when you move on to the next.
Right. Well, you know, look, nobody should be buying this stuff on faith, right? Let's, we're all data-driven individuals, and and God we trust, and everybody else better bring data, right?
That's right, and give them your data, right? Like give them access to the data that's relevant to help build that ROI model, right? There's Google Analytics, GA4 is now out. Allow them to have access to parts of that property information so that they can see your traffic, and they can help build a case for that, right? And definitely, if you move into an AI credit decisioning, you have got to work, you sign all the NDAs and everything like that, but they've got to do a proof of concept with your files, with your credit files, the ones you've approved, the ones you referred, the ones you denied. That's the only way you're going to know, because each market is different, right? So it's really, really important. And again, if that partner is not willing to do that with you, that's the wrong partner. That's the one thing I will tell you right there.
Very good. Very good. And as we close our discussion today, you shared with me last time we spoke, you had a litmus test for, why do I need to do this? So if you could just share that with us, and then we'll bid you farewell.
You're getting all my secrets out of me. Huh? I think this is a good one, right? I tell my team this a lot. Is it good for our members? Is it good for our staff, our team? And is it good for our community, right? If I can't get past that, there's no way I'm bringing that to my colleagues, right? That's a simple process to go through. And then the second litmus test, I think you've heard me say it a couple of times, is meet your members where they want to be met, right? Don't don't paint yourself into a corner where you're just going to be digital, right?
Mhm.
Some members don't want that, right?
Mhm.
That's
Right.
okay, and that's all right. That, so you've got to be able to provide them the same service experience and expectation if they walk through one of your branch doors, or if they pick up the phone and reach out to your contact center, right? So
Mhm.
you've got to be able, as you build your tech stack, it's got to be omni-channel and be able to operate across those different channels. So our next goal is, if somebody comes to us through our website, starts a chat, can go to an email, and then can go to a phone call, right? That's the next layer that we're going to be building into our service expectations. And how we're doing that is going to be with Salesforce CRM. So.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you so much on behalf of the audience for being so generous with your time, with your insights, with your secrets. It's just solid gold. So thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.